Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people for your Thursday, January the 11th. We're almost halfway through January, and it looks and feels like January outside. It's cold, thus the hum you'll hear in the background of videos over the next few days is going to be my heater trying to keep up with it. That being said, and it's having mixed results, but that being said, let's get into the news of the day, starting with the New York Rangers. Kaapo Kakko has to be close. He's on the road trip with them. He's not going to be playing tonight, but it does sound like he's getting closer. Both Trouba and Zibanejad will play. There was some discussion about whether or not they would. So they're both going to be in the lineup for the New York Rangers. Good news for them, bad news for any team playing them, of course. John Tortorella. So this is, I like this. I think that this is why Tortorella's become one of my favorite coaches in the National Hockey League. At the start of the presser, just asking, is the reporter, is the reporter here who started the Kevin Hayes had something to do with the Cutter Gauthier trade rumor? And the reporter was, and he just tears into him and just absolutely ripped him up one side, down the other, said Kevin Hayes is a good man. He was a good, basically making it clear that Tortorella and Kevin Hayes do not have a problem with one another, and that he did not believe the report for a minute. He basically said, I don't care about your sources. I don't care what you've heard. Hayes is a good man, and now he's going to have to carry that around. So, I don't know. I kind of think that, when Tortorella goes on rants like this, players have to listen to that and go, there's a coach that's going to go to bat for his players. There's a coach who's going to tell you the truth. There's a coach who's not going to blow sunshine in certain places as other coaches might. He's going to tell you the absolute truth, and he's going to defend his players when he needs to as well. So I think it's great. I think in between him deciding yesterday, I don't want to answer any more questions about Drysdale. He hasn't played a game for me yet, so no opinions. To now saying, all right, so who's the reporter that started this? Yeah, you need to not do that. I think it's great. And kudos to John Tortorella for that. Because, again, we've seen how the internet's reacted to this, and now Hayes is the biggest jerk on the planet. And, clearly Gauthier is spoiled, and he's this terrible person, and how dare he, when, basically it's a lot of it is speculation, and a lot of it is there's two sides to every story. And at any rate, kudos to Tortorella for coming out and saying what he said. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. All right, Corey Perry, after meeting with Gary Bettman, he has been cleared to return to the National Hockey League. We'll see where he signs and what ends up happening there. Perry, of course, going through rehab process, and now is allowed to return. So we'll see who signs him. I'm sure somebody will sign him with this process that he's gone through and everything. I'm sure somebody will sign him. But we'll see how long that takes. A lot of teams right up against the cap who might be willing to give Perry a third or fourth line role, but they need the cap space in order to facilitate such a move. Josh Norris is out tonight for the Sens. Upper body injury. He was hurt late in the game against the Flames. Those are the things I don't write on the board very much either when watching reviews, because there are so many times where a player leaves the bench and comes back. I used to try to track that, and I just got tired of it. I was like, okay, so he came back, he did. He's fine, he's not fine. And then there's players who play the entire game and they're hurt the next game. So, but Norris did leave. I think it was about 4 minutes left in the game against the Flames. He will not play tonight. So we'll see how the Sens do without Norris. Norris's production this year hasn't been where they would want it to be either, so it's just been one nightmare after the other for the Ottawa Senators. The only reason I didn't have them in the panic part of the panic index yesterday is because they already fired the coach, they fired the GM, and they have a new owner. What more can they do? And then the answer is trades. Well, that's probably not going to happen right now either because of all the issues that teams have with the salary cap. So, at any rate, there you go. Buffalo, who are in the panic section of the panic board. Skinner, week to week, upper body injury for him. He's the one that played the whole game the other night, and he's out tonight. Okposo, though, will be in the lineup tonight. So for Okposo, the captain for the Buffalo Sabres, he's been out for, I think it's 3 or 4 games. So he draws back into the lineup. Obviously, he doesn't provide the same offense as Skinner, but he does provide that leadership. So, again, the Buffalo-Ottawa matchup, a matchup between two teams that just have not had the season that they would have wanted at the start of the year. And we'll see how long Skinner's out, because that's a major, major hole in that lineup with Skinner out. Will Carrier, this was announced yesterday. He's week to week. It's an upper body injury. He did have surgery for that upper body injury, which tells me probably shoulder. But at any rate, Hill, the one that really caught me off guard last night was that Hill was supposed to start. He was confirmed to start, and then at the last moment, Seville gets called up, and Hill was a scratch. So for Aiden Hill, it appears that this is the second time now that he's returning. The last time, of course, he actually was in game and then realized he wasn't right and he had to leave. In this case, he was set to return and then they scratched him. So it's less discouraging this time, I think, than it was last time. But again, if you're a Vegas fan, let me know your thoughts, because the Golden Knights are definitely trending in the wrong direction and have been for about 6 weeks now, and it feels like it's getting somewhat worse, and the injuries definitely are not helping them. Speaking of injury news, Oshie returns tonight for the Washington Capitals. He's been out for a while. Ovechkin is considered a game-time decision. I'd be very surprised if Ovechkin misses the game, because he doesn't generally miss games very often. But yeah, so for the Capitals, a team that's right, flirting with that playoff line and has been for weeks, getting Oshie back should help, although Oshie's production this year hasn't been fantastic. Just having him in the lineup should absolutely help him. And then it's a matter of whether or not Ovechkin plays. And I didn't even put on the board all the players right now who are dealing with illness. There's flu bugs going through all the locker rooms, it seems, and it's wreaking havoc with the lineups. So it just becomes a situation where it's like, okay, they should be back, but we don't know. And this guy's out, no, this guy's out, and then it's going to be running through that locker room too. Anyways, so Nick Cousins is out for Florida. He's dealing with concussion symptoms, so he's not skating at this point while he's dealing with concussion symptoms. And of course, with Cousins, he's been in the spotlight for a couple of controversial hits that he's thrown in games, controversial cross-checks and things of that nature. So him dealing with a concussion right now takes that out of the lineup for a Florida team that has won their last 8 in a row. And they can absolutely afford to deal with injuries. They have very good depth in their organization, both on the front and on the back end. And so, yeah. We'll see how long Cousins is out. Concussions are really difficult to track and say, okay, so he'll be out for a couple of weeks. In many cases, you just don't know when they're going to be back. Bussy has been called up by the Boston Bruins. Not really a surprise. What is kind of a surprise, and I think it gets more and more worrying to Boston fans as the hours go by here, is there's been no official word on how long Ullmark's going to be out. Ullmark clearly pulled something in the game against Arizona in the overtime there. It looked like he hyperextended, and that can be groin, it could be ACL, MCL, could be almost anything really, but almost nothing that would just be a day-to-day short-term injury in all likelihood. So we'll see how long he's going to be out. But the longer that they wait before announcing it, the more concerned I get, because if it's day-to-day, you basically just say, day-to-day, no problem. But the longer it takes, the more concerned I get that we might be looking at months he could be out. But we have no idea. The Boston Bruins not giving that information at this point. So I will admit I kind of chuckled at seeing this morning. NHL Edge IQ, along with Amazon Web Services, are introducing a new stat that will measure how well one team is controlling a game. So you know how I talk in videos, reviews, I talk about who's pressuring, who's got the control, who's controlling, and trying to get into who's controlling each game. Well, they're calling it Ice Tilt. If you've played EA Sports NHL games, that probably just made your eye twitch a little. I know it's made mine twitch, and I remember playing back to, I want to say it was like NHL 13. It might have been further back than that. It could have been NHL 09. The first time I noticed it, where I had a lead, the game's going really well, and then all of a sudden, nothing I was doing was working. All of a sudden, no matter what I did, the other team was getting goals. The other team was just taking over the game. I'm like, what is happening here? And pretty quickly after that, I discovered, Ice Tilt. That's what's happening. So I'm kind of surprised the NHL would use this terminology. I know that it's terminology that's been there for a long time. But again, for people who've played the video games, when I mention Ice Tilt, you're like, that's where the AI decides you're done winning. That's great. You know what else though? I'm going to say this as an old video game player. There were games back in the 80s that would do that too. Tecmo Baseball. ruined large portions of my childhood for the fact that I would be pitching a perfect game and I'd have the whole thing figured out, and then all of a sudden the seventh inning, nothing. I could change pitches, I could do whatever I wanted, and nothing. I was guaranteed that the AI would come back. The weird thing was, it felt like it was just the seventh inning. That if I escaped that, the eighth and the ninth were fine. I could, as long as I emerged with the lead after the seventh. But oh man, some of the language that came out of me when that would happen, because it just feels like cheating, doesn't it? So at any rate, let me know how you guys feel about when a video game starts cheating. Deciding, you know what, we're gonna have to nerf your controls and your team because this score is too lopsided. So we're gonna have them win instead. But anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I will say that other than the name, it does sound like a really useful item. I really haven't been using the NHL Edge stats very much, but if they add that, I absolutely would be interested in that. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.